Good morning, impression po. It is a Wednesday, the 27th day of August, bringing Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. There has been a leadership change in the Philippine National Police. Police Lieutenant General Melencio Nartates has been appointed as the new chief, replacing Police General Nicolas Torre III, who has been relieved from his post. Will the DPWH engineer accused of bribery turn on his own? That's the hope of Batangas Congressman Leandro Leviste, who wants the engineer he sued to become a state witness and expose anomalies in the government's flood control projects. But what does this mean for the investigation? We'll get answers straight from the source, as Representative Leviste will be with us to discuss this later in the program. DPWH Chief Manuel Bonoan fires back at Representative Terry Redon's warning over ghost projects, insisting liability must first be established. The secretary denies any personal gain and vows to hold guilty parties accountable. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, a surprise shakeup at the Philippine National Police. Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. is now the officer in charge, following the abrupt relief of PNP Chief General Nicolas Torre III. More in this report.
Police Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. formally took over as the officer in charge of the National Police on Tuesday. He was in Western Mindanao, serving as Area Police Commander, when he got the call to return to Manila.
I was discharging and performing my duties in Pagadian as in my capacity as the Area Police Commander for Western Mindanao. So I received a call about late mid-afternoon, and then I fly back to Manila.
The reshuffle came after General Nicolas Torre III's short and controversial stint as PNP chief. He was installed in March but faced issues, including sudden transfers of senior officers. Nartates himself had been reassigned to Mindanao under Torre's orders, but he said he took the transfer in stride, especially with the critical task of overseeing security for the Bangsamoro parliamentary elections.
Of course, there is a pressing concern, especially so that number one, of course, is yung ating parliamentary election in Bangsamoro region of Mindanao. So I will be in charge to look at the operations, especially the security aspects in the election. So yun po ang instruction.
Speculations also twirl about an awkward chain of command, with Torre still holding a higher rank than Nartates. But the new OIC says position outweighs rank. Nartates, a member of PMA class of 1992, previously served as police director of Ilocos Norte under then Governor Aimee Marcos. He now faces the challenge of unifying the police force while the president decides on a permanent PNP chief.
Normal po sa organization, lalong-lalo na sa Philippine National Police. So, wala dapat maging masyak dyan. Sa nakikita ko, wala naman turf war. As long as may order, nandiyan na ang order, and you have assumed, everybody will abide to that.
For now, Nartates says he will focus on maintaining stability inside the organization, while Torre awaits a new assignment after his relief from the top post.
Former PNP Chief and Senator Ping Lacson believes Torre acted beyond his authority, and this could have been the reason for his firing. Despite an order from authorities to retain Nartates, Lacson said Torre's decision to relieve his second-in-command broke protocol. Lacson explained that the designation and relief of members of the PNP command group should be cleared first with the president, or at least with the ex-officio chairman of the National Police Commission, as well as the Secretary of Interior and Local Government. Other lawmakers have also reacted on Torre's relief.
Ang pagkaalam ko, na-demote si Nartates at iba pang general na Ilocano, nagdadaing kung bakit daw nangyari yun. Kaya sinita ko siya, sabi ko, hoy, ba't ganun? Nako, may balik yan, magdahan-dahan ka. Hindi ko naman alam, magiging bilang anghel ako. At nagpapaumanhin ako, wala akong alam.
Galit ako na naawa ako sa kanya. Because I've been there. What if ako ang nandyan, nakaupo, at sinunod ko lahat ng orders ng nagbibigay ng orders sa akin. Lahat-lahat na ginawa ko. Kahit na yung bordering to illegal acts. unconstitutional acts, questionable acts. Ginawa ko na lahat-lahat. Pagkatapos, ngayon, tanggalin lang niyo ako. Just goes to show na ulang forever.
Sana hindi maapektuhan dahil again, serving at the pleasure of the President ang sinumang PNP chief.
The House Committee on Justice will launch a motu proprio inquiry into the United States extradition request for detained Pastor Apollo Quiboloy. Akbayan Representative Percy Sendanya said the probe aims to ensure transparency, fairness, and adherence to international obligations. The inquiry will call on government agencies to clarify the extradition process for Quiboloy, who faces U.S. charges including sex trafficking, conspiracy, and immigration fraud. Committee Chair Representative Jervil Luistro noted that existing laws remain unclear when an extraditee has pending local cases and the timeline of the U.S. request is still vague. Joining us now to talk more about this development, we have on the show Batangas 2nd District Representative Jervil Luistro. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Congresswoman.
Good morning and thank you for having me here in Morning Matters.
Oo, kayo po ay mukhang busy pero maraming salamat po sa inyong oras at sa pagkakataon. Na unang-una ho, alam po natin pagdating sa extradition request, ito po ay dumadaan sa DFA at pati na rin po sa DOJ. Can you explain why the House wants to have a motu proprio inquiry into this extradition request?
First of all, it is the prerogative ng member of the House of Representatives or any private citizen to push for a motu proprio inquiry in aid of legislation. At wag po natin kakalimutan ang mandato ng lehislatura ay gumawa ng batas o pagandahin, paigtingin ang ating mga existing na batas. Kahapon po sa ating discussion during our first meeting, we raised the letter that was sent to us, the Committee on Justice, by the Honorable Congressman Sendanya, na humihiling po na mag-conduct ng isang inquiry in aid of legislation patungkol sa extradition ni Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy. Meron pong report that the United States is requesting for his extradition. At ito po ay nagmula sa ating Philippine Ambassador to US, Ambassador Babes Romualdez. No? At kaugnay po nito, tinalakay po kahapon whether or not kailangan ba nating magkaroon ng inquiry in aid of legislation. At doon po sa ating pagpapaliwanag at pagpapalitan ng opinyon at komento, lumalabas na marami pong kakulangan or may mga malalabo sa probisyon ng batas. Particular po dito, ang mismong extradition treaty between the United States government and the Philippine government at ang mismong Philippine extradition law, which is PD number 1069 na naipasa po panahon pa ng ating dating Pangulong Marcos Sr. One of this, ang pinaka-distinct po dito, na hindi pa na-encounter ng Philippines in the past. Ito pong si Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy ay mayroon ding kasong hinaharap dito sa Pilipinas. And the purpose of the extradition to US is because may haharapin din siyang kaso doon sa Pilipinas. To be specific, ito po ay sex trafficking. No? So the main issue here is, pwede po ba na ang isang residente ng bansa facing charges here in the Philippines ay ma-extradite sa Amerika para humarap din sa panibagong kaso na ginawa naman doon sa isang bansa. Well, based on the treaty, maliwanag po, pwede. However, there are two options that the Philippine government must consider. Kapag po na-grant na ang extradition or petition for extradition, the Philippine government has to choose whether it is temporary surrender or deferred surrender. Kapag sinabi po nating temporary surrender, it means kahit mayroon pong hinaharap na kaso dito sa ating bansa, pwede po nating i-extradite siya sa Amerika upang harapin ang kanyang mga kaso doon. At pag sinabi naman po nating deferred surrender, tatapusin muna ang kaso dito sa Pilipinas and even the service of sentence bago po siya i-extradite or i-surrender sa ibang bansa. This is just one among the several ambiguities and insufficiencies na nakikita po natin doon sa mga existing laws. To be specific, the extradition treaty and the Philippine extradition law. At ito po ang dahilan kung bakit minarapat ng Committee on Justice, partikular na mga miyembro nito, na magsagawa ng motu proprio inquiry in aid of legislation. As I have said last time, ang pangyayari po tungkol kay Pastor Apollo Quiboloy is just incidental. What is primary is for us to respond to our legislative mandate, and that is to revisit the laws and to improve if the same is necessary.
Okay, doon po sa sinasabi po ninyo na options, no, meron po tayong temporary at deferred surrender. Does the law say anything about the guidelines of what would entail one or the other? Because, for example, in the ICC case, right, our Secretary of Justice has already said that the ICC would be in the best position to hear the case on the drug war kasi dito mismo kulang tayo ng ebidensya. Is that indicated in the law or pati yun po ay kulang?
There are no details with respect to how the temporary or the deferred surrender will be facilitated. Ang number one question nga po kahapon, who will exercise the authority to choose between these two options? Sino ba ang may kapangyarihang pumili kung ang atin bang isasagawa ay temporary surrender or deferred surrender? Pagaman, maliwanag po sa ating extradition treaty na ang meron pong authority na maghain ng petition for extradition ay ang Secretary of Justice through the Chief State Counsel. Kaya lang po, silent po ang batas. Pagdating po sa sino ang mag-exercise ng authority in choosing between temporary surrender or deferred surrender. So this is one of the insufficiencies or perhaps ambiguities gusto po sa sitahin ng Committee on Justice upang maging maayos at mas maging responsive ang atin dito sa bansa.
Okay. I think there are two angles to this. No, one is that the diplomatic ties between the country requesting for extradition and the host country, the home country, at meron naman po sa kabilang dulo yung dispensation of justice. Ano sa tingin nyo yung tingin nyo dapat magiging pinaka-priority po rito? I mean, given the whole situation, we know that this case is very political as well, right? But on the other hand, pag titignan nyo po yung mga kaso ni Pastor Quiboloy, saan po kaya mas mabigat? He is charged here in the Philippines with qualified human trafficking and sexual abuse. But nauna po yung nasa Estados Unidos na conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking by force, fraud, coercion, sex trafficking of children, and bulk cash smuggling. Do you think, ano po ang reasonable po dito? I mean, in your opinion, na maging pamantayan?
Well, in my opinion, Gretchen, parehas sila mahalaga. It is important that we try him here because that is an exercise of our sovereignty. At may mga tao ditong nabiktima or biktima ng mga kasong isinampal laban sa kanya. However, we have to consider also na meron tayong treaty obligation sa bansang United States. No? And by treaty, it means it is obligatory on our part na tuparin ang ating tungkulin sa ilalim ng ating treaty. No? I wish to add also, Gretchen, ang complainant po doon sa United States mostly ay Filipino din. And we have to consider also almost the same nature ang kanila pong kaso. That is sex trafficking, human trafficking, no? Although the way I see it, I went over the list of cases that he is facing in United States. Mukhang mas marami siyang kaso sa US kumpara dito sa atin. Kasi you mentioned already, merong fraud marriage, merong bulk cash smuggling, and other similar cases other than the human trafficking and the sex trafficking. So, parehas sila mahalaga, Gretchen, and I believe this is the reason why in the treaty, in-incorporate itong dalawang options, the temporary surrender and the deferred surrender. That is in order to give way to both countries to conclude the trial of both cases which are being faced by the same extraditee.
You're correct, no, that this case and the decisions around it have a bigger effect, and it does not exist in isolation. In fact, it may set a precedence as to how the Philippine requests get received by the United States. Kung babalik na rin po natin yung equation, sino po ang iimbitahan po natin dito sa inquiry na ito to be able to give their sides and to weigh in?
Certainly, no? Kakailanganin natin sa investigation ang expertise, of course, ng Department of Foreign Affairs, ng Department of Justice, including the Office of the Legal Department headed by the Chief State Counsel. Kakailanganin din po natin dito ang Office of the Solicitor General, and perhaps the National Security Council and the Philippine National Police. Initially, ito yung nakikita kong mga agencies na kailangan nating makasama sa pag-aaral ng batas so we can improve our extradition law.
Okay. Magiging malaking konsiderasyon din po kaya yung mga sentimiento ng mga biktima dito na nililitis at in their protection and where they feel most comfortable having their cases heard?
What we need to consider, Gretchen, no? May sentiments yung mga victims na naririto. In the same way, may sentiments din yung mga victims na nandoon sa United States. Ang gusto kong ulitin, most of the complainants in the United States are also Filipinos, no? Kaya kailangan nating pag-aralan ito mabuti so we can administer justice hindi lamang dito sa Pilipinas, maging sa ating mga kababayan abroad. I just wish to reiterate, Gretchen, no? Nagkataon lang na si Pastor Apollo Quiboloy ito, but what is really apparent, matanda na po yung batas, 1977, passed by President Marcos Sr. As a matter of fact, mas nauna pa to kesa sa treaty between U.S. government and the Philippine government, which was executed back in 1994. Maliwanag po kahapon sa ating pag-aaral, maraming insufficiencies, maraming ambiguities, and the Congress, through Committee on Justice of the House of Representatives, need to respond to our legislative mandate, and that is to revisit and improve the existing laws on extradition.
Kayo po ba ay nagkaroon na ng kopya nitong extradition request?
Wala pa po tayong nare-receive, and we wanted to verify as well kung meron na nga bang request ang US government. But as I have said, Gretchen, incidental na lang to, no? What is important, we were able to establish yesterday na maraming ambiguities, maraming insufficiencies, and there is a need to revisit and improve the same.
And speaking of investigations, I want to go to something else. Of course, you are a congresswoman from Batangas, and we do know that another congressman from your province, Leandro Leviste, has voiced out on bribery and these flood control projects. Kayo po ba ay meron din na pong naranasang ganun in your district, in the 2nd District?
Wala pa po tayong nararanasan ganyan, Gretchen, no? At sana po wag nating maranasan yan because we have to acknowledge as well na bagaman meron pong mga kawani ng pamahalaan na nasasangkot sa mga anomalies like itong mga bribery na naranasan ni Congressman Leandro Leviste, no? We have to consider as well na sila po'y partners natin in delivering service sa ating pamahalaan. Kaya sana naman ay wala nang kasunod itong pangyayaring ito kay Congressman Leandro Leviste. And of course, we commend the action of our colleague in the House of Representatives. Siyempre, kapatid at kababayan ko pa siya mula sa lalawigan ng Batangas. I commend your courage in coming out to the open and exposing this illegal action of the district engineer of the first district of the province of Batangas.
Well, Leandro himself said that some other congressmen may be implicated here. That's why he's calling for the suspect to become a state witness. Would you have the same observation of the yung pareho pong kalakaran? Kayo rin po ba kung hindi po sa inyong karanasan, naririnig po ninyo na nangyayari po sa iba?
Gretchen, I can only speak for my district, no? I can only speak for my district. And we have to understand as well, wala naman po sa trabaho ng congressman ang mag-implement ng batas, ang mag-implement ng projects. We only request, we only assist in facilitating the request of our constituents. Nakikipag-usap po tayo sa DPWH for the possibility na baka yung hinaing ng ating mga constituents ay makonsider for a possible funding. Things like that, no? Pero hanggang dun lang po ang kayang gawin ng mga congressman. Hindi po kami pwedeng makialam sa allocation. Hindi po kami pwedeng makialam, lalo na sa implementation. Sana walang nangyayaring ganyan sa ibang distrito ng lalawigan ng Batangas. But as far as I am concerned, to the best of my knowledge, wala pong ganyang kalakaran sa ikalawang distrito ng lalawigan ng Batangas.
But congressmen have complete oversight over the budgets. Am I correct?
Yes,
Kayo po ang nagtutulak niyan.
Yeah. Yes. I understand there is an oversight function of the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives pagdating sa implementation ng ating budget. But we have to understand, Gretchen, this is the entire General Appropriations Act, no? Tama lang na kung kaya pa magbisita at mag-inspect ng congressman, and we will be considering to do that as well, no? Pero para tutukan, to completely scrutinize each and every project, I think it will be compromising already the function and mandate of the legislative branch.
Oo, ibig sabihin wala na pong debate na nangyayari. Kung wari, meron pong request na inihatid sa inyo, hindi niyo na po baga parang, kailangan ba talaga ito? Wala bang ganong mga usapan in terms of like allocation of funding?
Well, ako sa akin, no, I can ask the requesting party, meron bang site? Kailangan ba ito ng mga tao? What is the purpose of your request? Things like that. Minsan ang makikiusap sa'yo, barangay captain. At yun namang lugar na kung saan pagtatayuan ng mga proyektong ito ay nakikita mo na rin sa pag-ikot mo sa distrito. So I don't see any irregularity pagdating dun sa aming distrito. I just don't know about the things which may not be within my knowledge anymore because we do not take part in the implementation of the project.
It seems though that Congress is taking a hit from this flood control investigation, flood control probe. Marami po nagsasabi na hindi dapat ma-exempt ang mga kongresista. Paano po kaya? I mean, what do we do with the erosion of trust in Congress? What can the Congress do about it?
Alam mo, Gretchen, this is what transparency and accountability is all about, no? At ito na may alam ng lahat ng mga taong nasa gobyerno. Batid ito, not only the congressmen, but even all other public officials. I understand by ongoing inquiry na sa Senado, and we have an ongoing inquiry also headed by Congressman Terry Redon, no? So kung ano man ang maging findings nila doon sa investigation, because this is in aid of legislation, I hope they can pass and improve existing laws, no? And kung sino mang makita nila na mayroong mga pananagutan, I hope they will be willing to be accountable for whatever infractions which may be found by the investigations that are ongoing with respect to this flood control projects.
Okay, bilang panghuli po, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit about impeachment. Do you think congressmen are still interested in pursuing the filing of another impeachment complaint come February? Ano po bang temperatura sa Kamara po ngayon?
I think because of our commitment to the mandate of accountability and transparency, ay hindi naman ito nawawala sa Congress, no? Sapagkat tayo naman po ay mga kinatawan lamang, representative ng ating mga constituents. And ang nasabi ko nga noon, this is not actually a personal discretion. This is a constitutional duty that we really have to take. So base sa magiging desisyon ng Korte Suprema sa ating motion for reconsideration, I wish to believe that the members of the House are still committed to push the impeachment process.
Tingin niyo ho ba makakakuha po kayo ng ganong kabilis na mga signatures o dahil nga po sa nakita po natin nangyari dito sa Senate, medyo tumagal, ano? I mean, na-delay. Do you think some members of the House are reconsidering or wavering, perhaps because of the political climate?
Perhaps that is possible. Some of them are reconsidering their decision, but you know, Gretchen, 215 members of the House is a huge number, no? Most of them are still members of the 20th Congress. Mabawasan man ito, I think majority will still be standing to their decision during the filing of the first impeachment complaint.
But how do you think it should be done this time to avoid the same constitutional questions?
I adhere to the Constitution, no? Naniniwala ako na parehas legal ang proseso, the filing by 1/3 at least of the members of the House, which bypasses the proceeding before the Committee on Justice or the proceeding which requires a referral to the Committee on Justice. Kaya lang, ang nakikita ko lang dito, Gretchen, no? If the motion for reconsideration will be denied, there will be a need really to update the House of Representatives rules on impeachment pagdating sa second mode, which is the filing of at least 1/3. Kasi dun sa existing rules natin, which is almost or exactly the same as the provisions of the Constitution, once the impeachment case is signed and verified by 1/3 at least of the members of the House, automatic itra-transmit na ito sa Senate, no? That is the provision in the House of Representatives rules on impeachment, which is actually a duplication almost of what is provided in the Constitution. Kaya po ito ang sinunod namin by the letter kami of the Constitution, no? Now, kung madideny ang ating MR because the Supreme Court incorporated in their decision the need to provide the impeached official the opportunity to file her counter affidavit, the need to attach all the available evidence in support of the impeachment, and the certain mandatory periods that is provided in the House to make sure that the members who are signing the impeachment complaint understood and read the contents of the impeachment complaint, then there will be need to update the rules of the House of Representatives on impeachment, no? Ulitin ko po, yung rules on impeachment existing in the House is almost a duplication of what is provided in our Constitution. Ang sinasabi po sa Constitution, once there is an impeachment complaint signed and verified by at least 1/3, it shall automatically be transmitted to the Senate, no? Then comes this decision of the Supreme Court. I think there are 7 items na idinagdag ng Supreme Court on how this impeachment complaint, supported by one-third, should be transmitted to the Senate. So ito pong 7 items na ito, kung madideny ang MR, ay kailangan din ma-incorporate sa existing rules on impeachment ng House of Representatives. But
Medyo
either way,
nahihirapan ho, ano?
kahit sa pagpapaliwanag ko, nahirapan. But either way, we have to consider that both modes are recognized clearly in the Philippine Constitution, no? Actually, the first, tatlo actually yan eh. It can be filed by a member of the House, no? Any or some member of the House. The second mode, any private citizen, but it should be endorsed by any member of the House. The third mode, it can be filed by at least one-third of the members of the House. Doon
Correct.
sa pangatlo, doon na iba ang proseso under our Constitution. Doon sa first two, kailangan dumaan sa Justice Committee. But in the third mode, diretso dapat ito sa Senate.
Oo. But you were you able to sign the affidavit? Kasi parang may ganun din po requirement ano, sa Constitution na dapat may nakapagpirma ang bawat congressman sa isang
Yes,
affidavit certifying
I am one
na
of the
nabasa po nila.
215.
Oo.
Yeah.
Iba po yun.
Yung sinasabi mo, Gretchen, na nabasa, pinirmahan, naintindihan, inattest mo na ako ito, voluntary ang pagpirma ko, yun yung ibig sabihin ng verification. No?
Oho.
That is the contents of the verification.
So meron
And
po
that
nun?
is- meron. Meron.
Okay.
And ako personally, nagbasa ako at pumirma ako ng verification. Nanumpa ako sa section before I signed the verification. Actually, ando doon kami lahat, I think. No? Ewan ko kung sinong wala doon. Pero as far as I know, madami ang pumirma. Nagbasa ng sabay-sabay. Of course, iba pa ito doon sa kanya-kanyang basa at aral ng ating petisyon, no? So, but at the end of the day, Gretchen, let us always acknowledge, no, that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter. So, kung ano man ang maging decision ng Supreme Court on our MR, definitely we will completely abide.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagpapaliwanag ng mga pangyayari, the latest in the Congress when it comes to, of course, this motu proprio inquiry, the flood control projects, and as well as impeachment. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll
Thank you, Gretchen.
let
At
you
magandang
go
umaga po
to start your
sa
day.
lahat ng mga sumusubaybay ng Morning Matters.
Magandang umaga po. We have Batangas 2nd District Representative Jervin Luistro joining us today on Morning Matters. And stay tuned. The show will be back right after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Juan here on Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Levise hopes that the DPWH district engineer he sued for allegedly attempting to bribe him will become a state witness in the investigation of anomalous flood control projects. Here is the report.
Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste has formally filed a complaint against DPWH District Engineer Abelardo Calalo, who allegedly tried to bribe him. Leviste charged Calalo with direct bribery, corruption of public officials, violation of the anti-graft law, and breach of the Code of Conduct for Public Officials. The district engineer was arrested after allegedly offering the lawmaker over 3 million pesos to halt the investigation into DPWH projects in their district.
Nakita po ng PNP sa isang supot na may kasamang resibo ng tatlong mga proyekto na nakakahalaga ng 104 million pesos, 3% of which is 3.1 M.
In an interview with the Storycon, Levise said he hopes Calalo could serve as a state witness to shed light on questionable practices within DPWH and expose irregularities beyond his district. However, he noted that Calalo has yet to declare any intention to cooperate as state witness.
I hope the DE can become a state witness because it's not obviously going to solve the problems of the DPWH to pick on one employee.
The congressman also revealed that certain contractors, included in the list of President Bongbong Marcos with the most flood control projects, tried to bribe him as well. Among them, he said, was Alpha and Omega General Contractor and Development Corporation. Sara Diskaya, who ran against Pasig Mayor Vico Soto in the 2025 elections, was the president of Alpha and Omega.
One of the phases of the Binambang River project has one of the top contractors on PBBM's list,
Which one was it, Kong?
Alpha Omega.
Meanwhile, in a separate interview with The Big Story, Levista said that the distribution of money by the DPWH officials in his district has seemingly become a standard practice.
The giving of SOP for DPWH projects is supposedly something that happens all the time, but not something that I would tolerate in my own district, and hopefully can be less common if the public is more outraged by incidents like this.
And to further discuss all of these, we have Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste joining us this morning. Good morning, Congressman.
Morning.
Okay, you expressed hope that Engineer Calalo would serve as a state witness. What kind of information are you hoping to uncover here when you believe that he could uncover a lot of and how this whole system works?
In the case of my district, he can share how the contractors were selected and what the defects might be that we can hopefully claim on the contractors. But I think bigger thing that he could uncover for national interest is the system for how DPWH projects are quote-unquote rigged. Because in our private meeting, he explained to me that as a congressman, there is the possibility that one can select a winner for a bid, the bidders will collude, and that's why there's this supposed SOP for the projects reserved for the congressman of the 1st District of Batangas, which I did not accept, but that he can hopefully shed light on, because again, he's not the one benefiting the most from this system. There are others who are benefiting from it more.
You mentioned that you were offered about 3 million pesos from this district engineer. Is it 3%? I mean, is that the standard SOP for congressmen, or it could go higher?
There was a receipt for 3 projects totaling 104 million, of which 3.1 was 3%. And these are 2025 projects that were already awarded. It was actually surprising that there's still a provision for that, even after something's already been awarded. And I think the expectation is that there is that provision for upcoming projects to be awarded, which I heard was 10 to 20% depending on the kind of project. The percentage increases when a project is flood control because it's harder to audit. And one of the things we did on Monday was to get a backhoe to take out from the riverbed of one of the flood control projects in our district and found that what was supposed to be a 15-meter sheet pile was actually only 4 meters. And this project supposedly incurred approximately billion peso cost. So you can imagine that there's hundreds of millions of pesos of under-delivered materials in these flood control projects.
You know, when I was actually taking a look at these flood control projects, I thought somehow it would help if the public was more knowledgeable or educated on what should be expected from a proper dike, a proper river dredging, diba? Parang kasi we don't have any idea of what should be. Like for example, yung sheet pile, parang gaano ba kataas talaga yun? Would you have any insight as to that? I mean, in your own province and taking a look at what's been happening, the infrastructure projects that have been delivered over the years?
The program of works are kept by DPWH for each project. So I actually would encourage the public to document any deviations of completed projects from the program of works that was paid for and accepted by DPWH engineers. And even many years after a project has been completed and the warranty has elapsed, I think we can still make claims on contractors to correct and complete the projects that were already paid for.
So your office can request the program of works from the district office.
I think any citizen should be able to do so too. And of course, it's just time consuming. This is why this is something that we're focusing on in our district more than the hearings in Congress, because I think it's going to really be beneficial to our district if instead of using our budget to expand and repair old projects, that we can get them expanded or repaired at no cost to government. And as it relates to the 2026 budget, I hope that there's not going to be projects that are repairing or working off of previously built substandard projects, and that hopefully this will also free up more of the 2026 budget for new, more beneficial projects.
I'm very, very curious as to how this came up to you, how Engineer Calalo came up to you and offered the 3 million peso bribe. And what pieces of evidence do you have, to substantiate the accusation against him? Hopefully, it could also help other officials to do the same, to report, no? But usually kasi pag ganito sinasabi natin, ang hirap magkaroon ng ebidensya dahil kaliwaan yan. Usually the conversations are in vague terms, but on your end, from your experience, how did it happen exactly? And how did you keep the trail of evidence?
As a district engineer and representative, the two of us discussed the ongoing and upcoming projects in our district. And in this particular case, he expressed that ang mga contractor ay gustong magpadala ng suporta para sa aking mga programa, referring to the scholarships that I give students in the district. And he said that, of course, I otherwise wouldn't need the money, but that this would anyway be para sa aking mga programa. And the offer then was a percentage on all of the ongoing projects in the district and not the one that was reported as 3.1M. The 3.1M was 3% of 3 projects totaling 104 million, which was accompanied by a receipt of the 3 projects totaling 104 million.
Can you tell us all about the photo that we showed a while ago on our screen, yung table na puro pera? Ano ibig sabihin, may dala siyang cash? Paano yung nangyari yung entrapment operation?
Yes, so that's in our office in Taal, Batangas. And when we were meeting, I had the Taal PNP come to the office, and he was holding the bag with those contents in the picture.
So ibig sabihin nakipag-meet ka muna, and then that's when you invited the police over. That's why he was already carrying the cash.
Yes, so in our meeting, we were discussing the projects of the district and were told that the contractors are willing to magpadala ng suporta and that there would be subsequent meetings where more projects would be paid their percentage for. And I think thing here is that I think the public expects already that there is a certain SOP on these projects, but that it's very openly discussed by the DPWH officials themselves might be the surprising part. And that this probably wasn't how it was so much before, but perhaps a culture of toleration or impunity that it's reportedly increased in recent years.
Who do you think should be the most responsible? I mean, taking a look at the whole equation here, it could go as high as the Secretary of Public Works. It could also implicate, I guess, you guys, congressmen here, congressman before you, or other congressmen in other districts. How high and how deep does this go, and who is the most responsible in that chain? Oh, let's not forget the auditors as well, right? Apart from the district engineers.
Yes. What Engineer Calalo told me was that the congressman has a part in selecting the contractors. The DPWH engineering office supposedly facilitates the rigging of the bid, quote unquote, and the bidders supposedly collude. And I heard there's also some system for how no losing bidders get compensated, and the winning bidder is picked supposedly by the congressman. So I just assumed office this year, and I don't tolerate that, so I called the PNP. But the answer to your question is that the one who appropriates the funds has a part in choosing the projects, all of which is on paper, is also given a hand in selecting the contractor, which is, of course, not on paper. And that is the congressman of the district.
Okay. So will you look into the projects of the previous administration, the previous congressman in your district?
Well, I want to focus on what we can base on real on-ground evidence, which is auditing the projects. So when we find that something that should be 50 meters is 4 meters, then of course it's questions on why it was accepted, who was benefiting from this, but that at least we can demand that the proper work be completed on these projects.
Well, Congressman, the other side to it is that the usual answer or response we get from congressmen is wala silang alam. We don't know. We just leave it to the DPWH to take care of the budgeting. We don't want to micromanage. How do we get to the point that we actually have the weight of evidence against a lawmaker?
Yes, that's a very good question, and that's why naaawa po ako kay DE and the other DPWH employees who are taking the flak for this, because yes, they are facilitating it and there are laws that should be followed and they should also be held to account, but that the supposedly district representatives in the first district of Batangas have been the ones who have had a bigger hand in this system, and that's also reflected in the fact that they also get a bigger percent supposedly of the projects, and it's just not documented. It's the DPWH engineers who are signing off that these projects are compliant, and yet the one who's really benefiting from it doesn't have its fingerprints on it. And that's why it's interesting that in this case there is an engineer who, if he turns state witness, can help uncover how this works. I think that if he does so, then perhaps others in DPWH can also have the courage to do so, because it's quite risky for someone, not only for their job, but also their personal security, to speak out because, of course, there's possible retaliation by contractors, but also by the politicians who have benefited from this.
Has he said yes to you, to your offer of being state witness?
I believe that there's so much happening now that he would have to think about. And again, I sympathize for him, even if he was part of the system, because a lot more than just this happens. It just happened that hindi ko po tinanggap yung kanyang inalok, but there's a lot more where this is not being reported and not being caught. And hopefully, Engineer Calalo can help fix the system.
I was looking at Instagram the other day, and I noticed that you have the support of fellow young lawmakers in Congress. The young guns have, posted on their social media to throw their support for you. And you talked about, I remember, you talked about joining hands to reform the DPWH. Anong klaseng reforma ang nakikita mo rito, Congressman? What do you think? I mean, what should be done to be able to strengthen our institutions, finally, to resist all of this systemic corruption?
First of all, I would like to praise the administration for putting this at the top of the agenda, and PBB and SONA making this issue that can now be discussed more openly than before. And the Congress has also expressed that it wants education to be at the top and DPWH's budget a lower priority for the coming year. If that can be translated in the final budget that is proposed, where we can hopefully reduce the budget for flood control projects and reduce the cost of DPWH projects across the board for the upcoming year, that's actually the most important thing that Congress can do now. What has not yet been approved and bid out, compared to focusing on running after things that have already been done. And the more systemic reforms of DPWH are possibly many. Of course, this incident shows the value of a witness protection program for DPWH employees. There's the possibility also of greater transparency on the bidding process. But one thing that I am experiencing in my district is the quandary that supposedly the percentage that is for the congressman is already factored in to the costs of the projects. And kung hindi daw kukunin ng congressman ito, baka may iba pang kukuha. And because there is also no incentive for a district to have a bid that is below the ceiling price by a lot. Many of the DPWH bids end up being close to the budgets allocated, and there isn't that much savings. But if the savings for a project can be retained by the district instead of the current setup where it is reverted to the national treasury, then perhaps be an incentive, and also positive points for a district that can show that it can implement DPWH projects at a lower cost.
Maybe you could have a standardized 3% slashed to the budget. No, just kidding.
Well,
Okay.
I would hope that they can just use the savings on more efficient procurement to fund classrooms and education.
Correct. Well, bilang panghuli, no, an important question here. I want to go to the LGU side. They're complaining, many mayors are complaining that they don't have oversight over DPWH projects because these are not coursed through them. Walang permit. Pero dyan sa Batangas, is it the same thing? I mean, hindi involved dito ang LGU?
Definitely, that's something I agree with, giving LGUs more involvement on in DPWH projects. I also think that LGUs are arguably more efficient in implementing projects because when I compared the costs of a covered court, for example, by an LGU versus that of DPWH, the LGU is cheaper. And ang sinasabi daw ay dahil mas maraming dinadaanan pag DPWH project. But the example in my district is also that there was a particular road project that the LGU said should have been concrete, but was instead designed as asphalt the LGU actually asked DPWH to change the design, but DPWH said, I was just recounting here what I heard, that may malaking tao daw na naglagay ng proyektong ito, and despite the request of the LGU to make the material of the road more appropriate for the flood-prone area, kept it as a...
Oo. Kasi syempre the LGUs would know better what is needed in their communities. So we hope we are able to sort those out in Congress and put together the appropriate laws. But it is a good start. Maraming salamat sa iyo, Leandro, for all of your revelations today. We hope this investigation goes far as to create real reforms in the infrastructure system. Maraming salamat. We have Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste joining us today. The Judicial and Bar Council will conduct public interviews for candidates applying for the position of ombudsman from August 28 to September 2. The post became vacant following the retirement of former ombudsman Samuel Martires on July 27. The JBC said all interviews will be held at the Supreme Court en banc session hall. The Supreme Court noted that recordings of the public interviews will be uploaded after all interviews are completed. In sports, PLDT's hot streak continues in the Premier Volleyball League. The high-speed hitters cruise past Kobe Shinwa University of Japan in straight sets for the 2025 PVL Invitational. It is now the franchise's longest winning run, coming just a week after their breakthrough PVL On-Tour title. On Tuesday, the team celebrated with employees during a special visit to the PLDT office.
Kahit hindi naman sa tournament na to, from the previous tournaments as well, lagi kaming almost. So I think isa rin to sa naging motivation namin na hindi sumuko and talagang magtiyaga.
Very grateful, saka very thankful kami sa management namin na nandyan simula nung day one. So very happy kami na nabigay namin sa kanila tong championship.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.